Hi, I'm Seth Greenberg, and you're watching Elon Phoenix Weekly.
Mr. Greenberg is correct. And coming up on Elon Phoenix Weekly,
we hear from Seth Curry about her impressive setting numbers.
Preview the Elon women's basketball season.
And ESPN analyst Seth Greenberg takes a look at the ACC and CAA conferences for the upcoming men's basketball season.
All that and much, much more next on Elon Phoenix Weekly.
From the Jane and Brian Williams studio in the School of Communications, welcome to another edition of the Elon Phoenix Weekly. Good morning, I'm Chris Edwards.
And I'm Cam Siselsky. Thanks for joining us on your ESPN2 local sports break. We have a great show for you today that welcomes Elon Athletic Director Dave Blank to the studio.
Plus, you'll hear from ESPN analyst Seth Greenberg share his insights about the upcoming men's college basketball season.
And we discuss how to navigate discipline in college athletics.
But before we get into that, we hit the volleyball court where Seth Curry is among the CAA leaders in assists and one of the best setters in the CAA. Although her mom, Sonia Curry, was a setter on her college volleyball team, this sport wasn't always in Seth's plans.
I didn't really know much about volleyball until I got to 6th grade and I started going to volleyball camps. My mom never really pressured me to play or anything like that. She kind of just wanted to see where I would go. And originally I wanted to be a hitter. And then one day I was just sitting in the living room and I was playing with the basketball because all we had in our house at that time was basketballs. But again, I was sitting in the living room just playing with the ball and all of a sudden I just started setting. And I see my mom do it, so I knew what it was. And I was like, I'm setting. I'm like, Mom, I can do it. I can set now. And I just thought that it was very, it's an ironic story that I learned how to set with the basketball because just combined two of my favorite sports.
Although she learned to set unconventionally, Curry's work on the other aspects of her game has helped her become one of the CAA's best at her position.
And I've been playing since 6th grade, so obviously I haven't been technical with my skill at that age, but from sophomore year in high school and up until now, I go really hard and put in a lot of effort just to get better for my teammates as well. So,
when she first came into Elon, it was about technique and getting stronger in the weight room, and now it's all about just being a smart volleyball player and getting her hitters in the right position to get kills.
Curry's continued development and strong play have helped the Phoenix to an efficient offense this season.
Seth's doing a great job for our team, and the numbers speak for itself. She's leading the conference in assists per set, and our offense, our efficiency is 4th in the conference, so she has a lot to do with that. And I think she's just taken her game to a new level.
Despite her impressive stats, Curry credits much of her success to her teammates.
So whenever I look at the recap of the game and I see if I have a high assist percentage, I more than likely thank my teammates and my hitters for that, because I can put up a good ball or a bad ball and they can still make something good out of it and do something to either help it or just show that I tried to do the best I can to give them a really good ball. And I love that about my position. I love that I have the ability to touch every ball and to set my teammates up for success.
Although Curry leaves a noticeable fingerprint on every game she plays, she didn't become a great setter overnight.
It kind of comes with time and just being observant, because as a setter we aren't just playing, we have to notice what my team is doing but also what the other side is doing, and it just comes with awareness and knowing that you have multiple jobs and just putting up a ball.
She's just always thinking on the court, and I think that's the biggest change in her this year.
In addition to her smarts, Curry's competitive fire and leadership have grown and become driving forces for the team.
She's just really passionate about volleyball, passionate about Elon. You can tell she really wants to win. And as she's gotten older, that just, seeps out to the rest of the team. She's just, they're following her lead, whether it's in a match or in a practice. Any competitive drill that we do, you can tell she's trying to find a way to win.
Ultimately, Seth and the Phoenix will look to keep their momentum going as they enter the stretch run of the season and build towards the future.
Our hopes are to continue to win games. We're highly capable of doing it, and we've come so close in like 3 or 4 matches of pulling out that 5th set if that's what we get. But just staying confident in our play and finishing the postseason strong so that we can get into the tournament and then make a run for a ring.
It's great to see that Sedell is following in her mother's footsteps and having so much success on the court. Curry is averaging a staggering 10.3 assists per set. And lucky for head coach Mary Tendler, Curry still has her senior season ahead of her.
We now turn to a more serious topic. A few weeks ago, 3 Elon University football players were disciplined by Coach Skrosky, being suspended for the team's October 22nd conference game against the University of Richmond for a violation of team rules. Personally, I find this a refreshing move by a college sports team, one that has become all too rare in today's NCAA landscape. In this day and age of college athletics, we see dozens of scandals and cover-ups each year, and to see a coach hold his team accountable is certainly commendable, even at the expense of not having his best players out on the field. School of Communication Associate Dean Ken Gaither spoke with us about the issue.
So student athletes occupy a special place in society because what they do is very public. And so as a result of that, there's always going to be additional scrutiny on athletes. Do they deserve special privileges? I don't think so. I think because they are public and what they do is in the public, and that scrutiny, they have to be responsible. So I think they need to be as accountable as anybody else. And what it really comes down to is they need to have a proper sense of what's appropriate and what's not appropriate. Part of that is up to the athlete, part of it is up to the institution and the coaches that surround those players.
And do you think that for that disciplinary action, do you think that should be taken on by the school or the coaches?
I think it's a combination of both. Institutions have values and coaches are responsible for living those values with their players. So I think it's a combination of the administration and the coaching staff that should be working together to decide the appropriate action if an athlete has violated some policy.
Looking over just the past 5 years, we see numerous examples of coaches covering up instances in order to protect the reputation of the school, to give their team a better chance to win, or even to promote their own self-interests. A number of allegations come to mind. Sexual assault cover-ups at schools like Notre Dame and Baylor, academic dishonesty as exposed at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, and countless recruiting violations, including the most recent case regarding Louisville under basketball coach Rick Pitino. And of course, the Jerry Sandusky scandal at Penn State. Does this particular situation with the Elon football team compare in scope to the situations addressed in these cover-ups? Absolutely not. But nonetheless, I think other college teams should look to Coach Skrosky and his integrity in dealing with their own scandals. And we have seen other teams demonstrating this integrity as well. Just last week, Harvard University self-imposed a postseason ban on its men's soccer program after misconduct by members of the team. This is how a situation is properly handled. Address the problem, hold those responsible accountable, face repercussions, and move forward, as opposed to covering up the situation. Teams must get out front of these scandals in order to maintain integrity. Not only is it better for the program long-term, it is the right thing to do. While this is not the easiest way, cover-ups have become extremely prominent in college sports and are undermining programs. That needs to change. We now welcome in Sport and Event Management Department Chair Dr. Tony Weaver to talk a bit more about discipline in college athletics. Now, Dr. Weaver, you heard my thoughts on this issue. What do you think about the nature of discipline in college athletics?
Well, I think you're absolutely right. I think in today's society, we expect transparency from not only our college athletics department, but our universities as a whole. And so I do see that athletic administrators, university presidents are trying to get out in front of some of these scandals. I do think you have to pay attention to each unique case. Every case has their own facts and every case has their own situations. And I do think athletic directors and presidents, administrators are doing the best job that they can to try to take every case individually and pay attention to the facts of the case, so not to jeopardize the rights of the student athlete or any potential victims of the case.
Absolutely, and maybe that's why cover-ups sometimes occur. What do you think is the motivation to cover up some of these issues and these allegations?
Well, that's a great question. I would say obviously the one thing that comes to mind is obviously the winning, right? Winning obviously is a big part of why you might see schools cover up. I think, as you mentioned, the self-interest of a coach or an athletic director or president. Today's day and age, a scandal of any kind can cost a coach or an athletic director or even a president their job. And so I think in some cases you might feel like if we could cover up and get away with certain things, you see some schools reacting to that. That does not appear to be the best solution to this, but you still see it happen.
And do you think universities and college sports programs today are under more scrutiny than they have been in the past?
Absolutely. With social media, with the ability for the media not to necessarily work directly with athletic departments and athletic departments needing to work directly with media relationships, social media has taken on a life of its own, and so athletic departments are under a considerable amount of scrutiny because everybody has a platform now. And so I would suggest that as you see, whether it's a game situation or something off the court, people have the right and the ability to comment now. Years ago, the social media didn't exist, and so the ability to comment on these situations wasn't as public. And so, yes, I do see that athletic departments are under a lot more scrutiny because everybody has a chance to comment.
Absolutely. Well, Dr. Weaver, thank you very much for joining us.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Last weekend, we received some very sad news here at Elon. On the morning of Saturday, November 5th, Elon alumna Nicole Dinian passed away at the age of 22 after a 2.5-year battle with cancer. A 2016 graduate, Nicole received a degree in exercise science and was a member of the Elon women's soccer team. Nicole was diagnosed with Ewing sarcoma shortly after being named the 2013 Southern Conference Women's Soccer Player of the Year. Nicole has inspired so many in the Elon community and beyond. Our thoughts and our prayers are with her family and loved ones. We'll be right back.
It's weird for me to hear people say that, but I mean, Mel has always said that to me, and my mom always says that I'm her hero, so it's awesome. When you do something, put everything you have into that because you don't know if that's going to be gone tomorrow. If you don't have any regrets if you put everything that you have into what you're doing. That's probably my number one thing that I've learned.
Welcome back to Elon Phoenix Weekly on your ESPN2 local sports break.
With college basketball just around the corner, our own Alex Afori was able to talk to ESPN college basketball analyst Seth Greenberg about his time as a coach and discuss how Greenberg sees the national picture of college basketball shaping up this season. Alex.
Thanks, guys. So, Seth, first thing I wanted to ask you about, how was that the transition you made? Describe a little bit about that, going from being a college basketball coach to broadcast television analyst.
I've been very fortunate. I coached for 36 years, and when I got let go at Virginia Tech, I had to have a career. And I was very fortunate that ESPN gave me this opportunity. I don't take it for granted. And the biggest thing is you got to take the same approach with the media that you did when you were coaching, and that's preparation and making sure that you understand the responsibilities of the job, you take it seriously, and that you do the job to the best of your abilities. And I think too many times people get jobs, they take the job for granted, and I think that's a big mistake.
And obviously you yourself had a very long, successful coaching career, over 300 wins, over 170 in the ACC. What are some of your, favorite moments and highlights from your coaching career?
I love that question. That means I can talk about the wins and not the losses. I was very fortunate. Long Beach State, we went into Kansas and won at Allen Fieldhouse when they were number one in the country. I've taken teams into Duke and Cameron Indoor Stadium. Probably the most fun win, or two most fun wins, were at Kansas when they were number one, because the game before we absolutely got our brains beat in at VCU, and then we played Kansas when they were number 1 and won. And then when you beat Duke on game day, that was a lot of fun. I mean, for Virginia Tech to host a college game day and then to win the game against the number 1 ranked Duke team, that was a pretty good moment.
And transitioning over to the CAA here, what are your expectations for both Elon this year and the conference as a whole?
Well, the conference is deeper than people realize. I mean, I had a chance to speak at UNC Wilmington's tip-off banquet, and you got Fleming and you got Ingram, you got a style of play that's really hard to play against. And then Elon, you got a team right now. They return 5 guys that can play. I mean, they can really play. Tyler Sebring's a tough matchup because he's a stretch 4 that can shoot the ball, and he could have kind of a breakout year in terms of go from like a 9-point-a-game scorer to maybe a 15. I think Luke Eddy, the point guard, is kind of a reflection of Coach Matheny in terms of he's got a toughness, a little bit of what they had when he was an assistant at Davidson. The hardest thing for Elon is there's a transition period when you go from the Southern Conference to CAA. There's a transition period. Hofstra's got a terrific rebounder, and Gustas, William and Mary, the kid Pruitt can really score. The conference is very balanced.
And a little more on Coach Matheny, going into his 8th year coaching the Phoenix. What do you think of his coaching style and really just what he does as a coach for the Phoenix?
I think he's a really very good basketball coach. I think he's a terrific basketball coach. He's a good communicator. He's done a good job evaluating. Now, they've lost some players to transfer. The new culture of college basketball, you recruit a really good player and someone's going to recruit him right off your team. And that makes it tough. But he does a good job of identifying players. He does a good job of developing players. His teams play really hard. But when you transition leagues, I went from the Big East to the ACC. Even that jump, even as good as the Big East was, it's still a transition. And you've got it impacts your recruiting. It impacts the geographic footprints that you recruit. So there'll be a process, but he's a very good teacher. He comes from a great pedigree from Bob McKillop, and he'll continue to be successful.
And lastly, can't let you go before asking this one. Who do you got in the Final Four this year, and who do you think is going to be the national champion?
I mean, it's October. You're killing me. It isn't even Halloween. I like Oregon. I like Kansas. I like Duke. And probably Kentucky because I had a chance to spend a lot of time with them. And I actually think that Oregon can win the national championship this year.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex, and thank you, Seth, for joining us on this Elon Phoenix Weekly exclusive. Alumni Gym is sure to be packed with excitement as the men's basketball team begin their season on November 11th against William Peace University.
Switching gears from men's college basketball to women's. After an eventful offseason, the women's basketball team is ready to get back on the court. The team is looking to build off their 2016 NIT at-large bid and has high hopes for this season.
The women's basketball team has been working hard in the preseason so that they can reap the benefits during the upcoming regular season.
What we do in preseason is going to take us into regular season. It's going to kind of show people like what we're about right now, how we're coming in, if we're coming in strong, if we're coming in kind of weak, so it's very important.
I would say our preseason performance is going to be very important to set the tone for the rest of our season. It's just kind of good to get a gauge as to seeing where we're at and what we need to improve on before we get into conference play and start taking on some of the games that really matter.
The players are grateful for their trip to Italy, which not only strengthened their friendships but prepared them for the game.
This preseason we had the opportunity to go to Italy, which really put us ahead of the games because we were able to start practices 2 weeks early and then also get some playing experience.
I think that helped develop some team chemistry, and also just getting a few games under our belt and having those extra practices really helped kind of get our freshmen acclimated.
The women say their success comes not only from hard work on the court, but also by having a strong relationship off the court with the people they play with.
So being able to have players that you've been able to grow with over the 4 years that I've been here just kind of makes things easier, and you don't have to do as much teaching or learning experiences because a lot of these situations we've already been through, so we know what to expect.
I feel like we've gotten more connected with each other. I feel like we may be closer than what we were when I first got here. The seniors that were there, I only played with them 1 year, so the group of girls that I'm with right now I've played with for at least 2 years, and we're much closer, and I feel like we have a greater bond, which is good for us on and off the court.
Keeping a family atmosphere, I think that is just really pivotal into creating a team success. Being a close-knit team and continue to develop chemistry with one another so that way things will just click and come a little easier when we're playing together on the court.
As the preseason comes to a close and the team gears up for regular season, the players have an idea of what they need to keep doing in order to reach their goals.
We really just want to make sure that we show up to every game competing and expecting to get a win. I think that's important for us, and just being able to gain some confidence going into conference play because we have such high expectations of ourselves. during conference play. So
I feel like we can't start strong and then let off. I feel like we gotta try and keep it all the way through so that we can make it all the way to March and tournament time.
The Phoenix won their exhibition game against Wingate 74-32. They hope to set the tone for the season early when they take on Rutgers and Alumni Gym on November 14th.
We have to take another break, but stay tuned because Athletic Director Dave Blank joins us live in studio next on Elon Phoenix Weekly.
Provide 100% access to all students that attend Elon for global experience. Over the course of student athletes' 4 years at Elon, he or she will get to go abroad, and it's a real special thing. All of our teams are tied into the program.
The Elon Phoenix Weekly is made possible by the students of the School of Communications.
At Elon Phoenix Weekly, we cover a lot of team study abroad stories because unlike a number of accredited universities, Elon teams have the opportunity to study abroad. Led by Athletic Director Dave Blank, the Elon Athletic Department has created a unique program where at least one team is sent on a study abroad trip every year. Our own Catherine Prusader sat down with Director Blank to discuss the program's creation and its benefits to our student athletes. Catherine?
Thanks, guys. Okay, so Elon Athletics has implemented the study abroad program for all the athletic teams to study abroad. What do you think the benefits are to that, and why did you guys decide to do this?
The benefits really are the ability to become global and get the experiences that all the other students get. The reason behind our program really was twofold. We were trying to address some of the major components of the strategic plan of the university, where we want to provide 100% access to all students that attend Elon for global experience. So we developed a program that started off slowly with a couple of programs and built into our current commitment, which allows us to take every sports team through the NCAA rules once every 4 years and combine that with the academic experience that Elon provides all students. So our programs are faculty-led, they're classroom-oriented, just like the study abroad program for the student body, but they also conform to NCAA rules where we have to not miss class, we have to go in a confined period of time, and we have to compete while we're there. And so all of that fits in real well with the program that we built. And over the course of student athletes' 4 years at Elon, he or she will get to go abroad, and it's a real special thing. All of our teams are tied into the program.
You mentioned that teams play the country team while they're there. What are the benefits to playing an abroad team, and then what does that bring when they come back to the U.S.?
Yeah, our teams will compete while they're there with varied levels. We'll compete with schools, we'll compete with pros, we'll compete with colleges. Sometimes we'll compete with whatever team they can put together, just so that we can experience their culture. When our soccer team goes to Spain and competes in soccer, even against a youth team, the level is unbelievable because it's their sport. So that's just one example. Wherever we're going, we get to experience how they participate in a sport that we think is theirs. While our tennis teams were in London, they got to practice on grass courts, similar to the Wimbledon experience, and they got to see what that is like. And the golf teams played courses like St. Andrews, and they actually played a course that eventually hosted the Open, British Open. So there's those kinds of benefits as well. While they're competing against competition, they're also getting the experience that the folks across the pond, if you will, are getting as they grow up.
Who decides where you go, like which team goes to which country? Do the players get a say, or is it just the sport and like where the sport originated?
That's a great question long term, because as we've started, it's been easy, because in the first go round, what might make the most sense for which sport? We look at competition. We certainly wouldn't want to send a team to a country where they don't play that sport. So for example, softball went to Japan because the great tradition of softball, if we sent them to the wrong country, there might be no one to compete with. So it starts with that. This Thanksgiving week, during that break, our track team will be in Greece. I mean, what a better experience to go over and run track and do things. That's where it all began with the Olympics. So the first go-rounds have been easy to try to pick them off. Now the beauty of this is we only go once every 4 years. So only, a student will not get a rerun. So if we went to Greece every time with the track and field program, wouldn't be a bad thing. And once we know our way around, then we'll be able to enrich that experience.
And it's an NCAA rule that it's only once every 4 years. Do you see the NCAA changing that at all and implementing like more than just once every 4 years? And if so, do you think Elon would take advantage of that?
That's a tough call. I think the reason to have some rules on that for the NCAA is probably financial, to make sure that everybody's kind of in an equal footing on that. Otherwise, those that spend their money on this could go all the time, and those that are doing other things might not be able to do it. I think the idea hopefully will continue to be not to prohibit student athletes from being able to do things, but to make sure that we do them with integrity and do them in the right way within the confines of our university. I like the model the way it is. If they increase the ability to do more, I don't think that would influence us to change things. I think that we want our student athletes to be able to do this with our teams and do them within the once in every 4 years, but our student athletes are also students. So they have the opportunity to work individually with their professors and their coaches to work out the opportunity to go abroad within their curriculum as well. So a student athlete at Elon could go more than once as long as they do the one that's not with our teams within the confines of the academic setting, which again, if they work with their professor and their coach, they can probably figure out how to be able to do that.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us,
it's
Coach
good to
Blank.
be with you.
Yeah, back to you guys.
Thank you, Catherine and Director Blank, for joining us. Creating a program that makes a global experience possible for student athlete certainly affirms Elon's #1 rankings in study abroad. So Cam, have you studied abroad over your past 4 years?
Yeah, Chris, so January 2016, so about 9 months ago now, I had the opportunity to go to South Africa.
Wow,
as
that's
part
awesome.
of an experience. We went to Cape Town, went to Johannesburg, and really just focused on the country, especially after the fall of apartheid and kind of what's going on with South Africa right now. It was an incredible experience.
I bet.
What about yourself?
So my sophomore year, I also studied abroad in January, but I went to Costa Rica and did a ecotourism tour. So where I basically learned about Costa Rican culture, learned about the Spanish culture as well, basically immersed right from the get-go. So just being a part of that and learning like how developed this country is, even though it's considered third world, it was such an amazing experience.
Yeah, Chris, I tell you, we are very fortunate with all the different study abroad offerings that Elon has.
Absolutely. But unfortunately, that's all the time we have for you today. But if you missed anything or want to watch it again, be sure to check us out on YouTube at youtube.com/Elon Phoenix Weekly.
You can also catch us on Time Warner Cable to watch us on demand.
Head to elonphoenix.com to learn more about upcoming games and exciting success stories for Elon Athletics. And don't forget to tune in next week when we return for another exciting edition of Elon Phoenix Weekly.
On behalf of our producers and crew here at the show, we hope you have a great weekend.
For the Elon Phoenix Weekly, I'm Chris Edwards.
And I'm Cam Soselski. Live the Maroon life. Go Phoenix.